The last time we left off, the tournament had begun, and David had been going through the competition while our heroes rejoiced. But to their dismay, a new ranger stepped on the battlefield and doesn't seem to want to be on good terms with the others. How will they handle this potential threat? Find out in this stage of Power Rangers Digital Beasts, the Grand Martial Arts Tournament, Part 2.
Back at the rock quarry, Alexa says,
"Leave while you still have the chance to."
Ron rebuttals,
"This will be the fall of you all."
and Lion retorts.
"I've had enough of this guy already."
Following that, Ron says,
"You're brave, but that won't get you a victory today."
and Sela insists,
"You know what to do."
and walks off. Ron then pulls out a staff with a blade on it. Next, Ron immediately takes the staff and slashes Lion with it. Lion falls back, but Alexa catches him. Colby then says,
"Let's see if you can take me down."
Ron then stares vigilantly at Colby, puts his weapon in blaster mode, and then blasts him along with Becky while she was trying to sneak behind him with her camouflage ability. Alexa jumps up and tries to attack Ron with her fins, but is shot in the air. After that, Alexa then falls and says,
"Damn it!"
while Colby activates beast mode and gallops through the sand toward Ron with his antlers. Ron says,
"You're all tactics and no skill."
and grabs his antlers and swings him like a rag doll. Ron asks,
"Do you want to surrender to my lord?"
and Alexa stands up on her feet and exclaims,
"Over my dead body."
Lion then says,
"Yeah, you'll never catch us alive doing that."
and Sela suggests,
Why don't you show them some of your abilities, Savage?
Ron says,
I thought you wanted me to save that for the grand finale, but okay.
Colby, confused, asks,
Abilities? What does he mean?
and Lion interjects.
Don't tell me he can go into beast mode too.
Ron then presses the app on his morpher with a viper on it and shouts,
Beast mode! Activate Viper power!
and fangs develop around his arms and ankles. Growing more frustrated, Lion summons his lion mallet. Ron then says, bring it. Lion then swings his lion mallet, but Ron dodges it and pierces his fangs through Lion's chest. Ron then executes a spin kick on Lion, and he tumbles to the ground. The other three then charge at Ron with their weapons. Ron says,
You can try and gang up on me all day, but I bet you can't catch me.
Ron then presses the app with a coyote on it, and his body lights up as electricity crackles around it. Ron then runs at speeds that would break the sound barrier, and strikes the three down one by one. Ron then stops as the Rangers fall to the ground, and Colby rebuttals.
What the hell is this guy?
And Alexa answers,
"He's special."
while Becky mutters.
He is.
Minutes later, Lion stands up and exclaims,
We have to stand our ground. We can't let him win.
and then charges toward Ron and engages in a test of strength with him. Lion then says,
Nobody is stronger than me.
as he overpowers Ron. Ron then responds,
How would you know?
Lion rebuttals,
What do you mean?
and Ron retorts,
I'm not even using my full strength. Wouldn't you want me at my best so you can see who's truly the strongest?
Lion rebuttals,
Yeah, but how?
and Ron answers.
Press the app with the ape logo on my morpher and find out.
Lion exclaims
Okay, let's see what you got.
and presses the app. Furthermore, Ron's arm then grows to the size of a professional wrestler's. Lion says,
Whoa!
and Ron pushes Lion back with his newfound strength and knees him in the face. Afterward, Lion's nose cracks as Ron's knee collides with his helmet and he slides across the ground. Alexa questions,
"Are you okay?"
and Lion responds.
Yeah, but my nose isn't.
Back at the tournament, Jaxson walks out by the stage as the second round concludes, and Jaxson questions.
I wonder where the others are.
Maxwell then says,
Son, I need you ASAP.
What is it, Dad?
and Maxwell answers,
Son, I didn't want anything to interfere with the tournament, so I sent the others to handle a Chaos Squadron threat.
Jaxson worried rebuttals,
Dad, I know you wouldn't want me to miss this, but the world is more important than this tournament. Are they at least winning?
Maxwell then says,
No, but there's still a way you can help them, son.
Jaxson presses him and asks.
How?
Maxwell, determined, replies,
Well, it seems they're going to need 5 weapons to form the Beast Bazooka. You can help them by sending your weapons data from your digital prism. I decided to add that program in there last week just in case any one of you got into any type of trouble or you couldn't make it to the scene in time.
Jaxson says,
I'm on it right now, and I'll send my Zord's data just in case they need it.
and Maxwell nods his head. Back at the rock quarry, Ron says,
You will all bow to the might of Zion.
and Lion rebuttals,
We're going to show you the power of our might in a minute.
And Colby interjects.
Did you get the information?
After getting up off the ground, Alexa replies,
Yes, Jaxson. Just send me it.
Becky then says,
We need to hurry. He's coming back over here.
Alexa then goes into the weapons select menu on her prism and summons the Sparrow Saber. Colby nods his head and replies,
All right, let's end him.
The Rangers then combine their weapon along with Jackson's to form the Beast's Bazooka. The Rangers then aim the bazooka at the Savage Ranger and shout,
Beast Bazooka! Dynamic finish!
Lion then pulls the trigger and a blast propels itself toward the dastardly Ranger. Ron says,
I've got to think quickly.
and he puts his weapon in blaster mode and exclaims,
Savage Buster! Savage Flash!
A dark blue orb of energy then flies towards the blast and collides with it, and the energies then combust and hit both sides. The Rangers fly back and crash into the ground while Ron protects himself with his viper fangs. Minutes later, as Ron is struggling to stand to his feet, he mutters,
You guys almost had me there, but once again, you were outclassed by the better Ranger.
And Colby says,
He didn't even get a scratch from that?
Alexa then says,
That was our last resort.
and Lion adds,
It might be over with, guys. But before we die, I just want you all to know. I used all of your toothbrushes last week because I couldn't find mine.
Colby angered rebuttals.
Lion, that's disgusting. Why the hell would you share that?
Furthermore, Alexa says,
Yeah, why did you put your nasty-ass mouth on my toothbrush?
and Becky interjects.
Guys, that's not important right now.
Furthermore, Ron airily walks over and says,
It seems this is the end. I would give you a chance for better last words, but you're not even worth it.
Ron then powers up his Savage Buster for a blast, but Sela commands through his helmet,
Wait, Savage. I want you to show them the power of your Zords. They are the pinnacle of my inventions.
Ron then says,
You know what? I'll save the killing for later. Let's make this battle more interesting.
and he presses the app with his Zords displayed on his morpher and shouts.
Savage Zords, arise!
After that, Colby retorts.
He has Zords too? How could this day get any damn worse?
Alexa then says.
Let's call the Zords.
Becky afterward asks,
How are we going to form the Megazord?
and Alexa retorts.
Let's just say Jaxson sent me more information than just his weapons.
The Rangers then summons the Zords from the Zord selection screen on their digital prisms. Their Zords then come bursting on the scene. Ron then says,
Let's see if you losers can handle this.
As his Zords arrive on the battlefield, the first one jumps in the air and beats on its chest, the second one races down the field and howls, and the last one slithers around on the ground and hisses. Following that, Ron says,
Meet my Zords, the Ape Zord, Viper Zord, and the Coyote Zord.
and as he finishes speaking the four form the digital beast's Megazord. Lion says,
Might have won the battle, but you won't win the war.
and Ron exclaims,
We'll see about that.
jumps into the cockpit of his Ape Zord, lifts his hand in the air, and a wireless rectangular game controller appears in his hand. Next, as the Ranger's Megazord charges toward his Zords, he waves the controller in an upward motion. The Ape Zord then pounces in the air and shoulder tackles the Digital Beast's Megazord, and as the Digital Beast's Megazord rolls onto the ground, Alexa says,
Now might be the time to call on the other Zords. The systems are down.
and Lion interjects,
I'm trying.
and then scrolls through the Zord selection screen. Colby, fearing their end, exclaims,
Hurry, he's coming back toward us.
and Lion retorts.
You know, it takes a bit to scroll through the screen.
Becky then steps in and exclaims.
I'll help too.
Lion then selects the Rhino Zord and Becky selects the Gazelle Zord. The Rhino Zord then comes charging on the field with the Gazelle behind it. Ron says,
So you think I'm gonna just allow this like the others before?
confidently afterward, Ron waves his controller in a forward motion and the Viper Zord wraps itself around the other Zords in a squeezing motion, further damaging the two machines. The Viper Zord then unwraps its tail around the Zord's legs and the Zords stumble and fall over their backs. Lion says,
Damn it! I think they might be damaged too.
and Colby rebuttals.
You think? Judging by the hard fall, you should assume they are.
Lion then says,
Colby, shut up.
and before Colby can think of a rebuttal, Ron asks,
Any last words? Before I send you off to your graves?
Becky then says,
Even if you take us out, Jaxson will come after you, and he'll make sure that you pay for what you did.
Ron then ponders his thoughts for a minute and angrily yells,
He will fall too, and I'll make sure he dies an even more brutal death for being such a thorn in my side.
and Alexa asks,
What the hell are you talking about?
Ron then says.
I'm done talking to you.
Ron then presses a button and trigger on the back of his controller. His Zords then line up and combine into a Megazord with the Ape Zord forming the body and legs, the Viper Zord forming the head, and the Coyote Zord attaching itself to the left arm on the Megazord. Meanwhile, on the Chaos Squadron's ship, Cyan sits and contemplates a new plan. Cyan says,
I've thought of something even better than this. Let's stop the battle before it goes any further.
Sela then nods her head in agreement. Ron then says,
Savage Beast Megazord!
And follows it by shouting,
I call on the power of the Savage Cutter!
Next, a giant violet and gold double-edged sword then appears in his Megazord's hand. Following that, Ron waves his controller around, and as the Zord gets ready to cut through the digital beast's Megazord, Lord Cyan interrupts it and commands,
Wait!
Ron then rebuttals.
What now? Why do you all keep delaying me today?
Cyan rebuttals.
Watch your tone with me! Sela just wanted to see your Zords in action. I, on the other hand, I want something that is much more intriguing.
Ron then asks,
What could that be, Master?
Cyan, feeling disrespected, exclaims,
Don't question me, my student. Just do as I say and leave them be.
Ron replies,
Yes, Master.
And puts his controller down. The Megazord then walks off the field, and Lion says,
Why is he walking away?
Meanwhile, Alexa replies,
The bigger question is, why did he get so angry when Becky brought up Jaxson?
Colby says,
I don't know, and we shouldn't care. The only thing we should care about is that we're still clinging on to our lives.
And Becky insists,
Yeah, at least we live to fight another day.
Alexa then nods her head and commands,
Let's get the Zords back to the base for repairs, and try to catch what's left of the tournament.
Back at the tournament as it gets to the finals, Roger and David have an intense stare down with each other. As the bout is getting ready to begin, Alexa, Colby, Becky, and Lion are seen limping as they are walking up the stands. Maxwell says,
Are you guys okay?
And Colby sarcastically answers,
Barely.
Lion says,
Let's just say that threat you and Grace spotted was a lot stronger than both of you thought.
And Alexa interjects,
Yeah, the Zords are also damaged.
Maxwell says,
I'll see if I can get my friend from Mariner Bay to work on the swords.
Meanwhile, the announcer then exclaims, Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the main event. These two young warriors have fought hard to bring home the juniors championship to their schools. The match is between David Hernandez versus Roger Holmes. Ron walks up and Sensei Wong questions, Where the hell have you been? Ron then smirks at him with a dismissive face. Ron then replies, I had more important business to handle. Wong, annoyed, exclaims what could be more important, and Ron smirks at him and looks into his soul as his eyes glow black. Wong's anger then turns into fear, and he says, Well, at least you made it. As the match begins, Roger charges at David and throws multiple kicks, and David blocks them and trips him up with a leg sweep. The judges clap for David. The referee then says, Can you still compete? Roger then brushes him off and says, Of course, I can. Roger gets up and exclaims, You got in a lucky shot, let's see you do it again. And as David's confidence grows, he retorts,
Luck had nothing to do with it.
Roger then angrily charges towards David and throws a bicycle kick but misses, and David then does a spin kick and strikes him in the leg. Roger then stumbles back. David then grimaces at him and goes back into his fighting stance. Roger then thinks about what Ron said earlier, gets up, and mutters, You asked for this. Roger then runs up and strikes David's arm with a kick and then jumps and executes a spin kick to David's head, and he falls hard on the mat. Minutes after, Jaxson then runs up and exclaims,
He can't do that.
With Mrs. Hernandez following right behind him and yelling, Tell me my baby is okay. And David, with pain surging through his body, rebuttals,
Sensei, Mom, I'm alright.
Jaxson then says,
No, you're not. I'm not letting you go back out there. You could have had a concussion from that kick.
David, powering through the injury, replies,
Sensei, you gotta trust me on this one. I'm okay.
And Jaxson retorts,
Even if you are, it looks like the ref is going to disqualify Roger.
The ref then walks over to Ron and says, What your student did is illegal. I'm afraid I'm going to have to disqualify him. Ron then angrily rebuttals,
A little kick never hurt anybody. That kid is just soft.
The ref then looks at Ron with disgust and says, You know the rules. Wong then says, We know them all right. We know they are terrible. David then stands up and interjects,
Wait, don't disqualify him. I want the match to continue. I want to show him how to win the right way.
The ref then replies, Kid, what you're saying doesn't matter. David, running out of options, retorts,
I'll I'll forfeit if you try to disqualify him.
The ref then mutters, "You're tougher than you look, kid. The match will continue, but if he does anything else illegal, I'll have to call it in your favor." Roger confidently says, "Kid, you should have just let him disqualify me. You would have gotten off easy." And David rebuttals,
"Taking the easy way out, it's for chumps."
Roger then charges toward David. David ducks away from Roger's kick and kicks him in the leg and follows it with a roundhouse kick to his abdomen. Roger falls to the ground, and the ref says it looks like he's finished. Furthermore, the announcer shouts the winner of this match by a spin kick, David Hernandez, and the crowd erupts in cheers, and David's mom runs over to hug him. Lastly, Jaxson walks up and exclaims,
"You showed that cheater how a true winner succeeds."
David, assured, says,
"Yeah, I had to, Sensei."
Maxwell then walks up with the others and exclaims,
"I'm proud of you both, son."
And Jaxson replies,
"Thanks, Dad."
While David bows his head. Lion then suggests,
"How about we all go get some frozen yogurt?"
And Maxwell replies,
"But who's paying, though?"
Lion then answers,
"You, of course."
And Maxwell retorts,
"I should have known."
Later that day, as everyone is leaving out the parking lot, Ron is seen punching a wall. Roger says, "Sensei, I'm sorry I let you down." And Ron retorts,
"Oh, you're sorry, all right. Sorry waste of time."
Jaxson then says,
"Ron, calm down, man. It's not that serious."
And he replies,
"Why don't you mind your own business, Jacobs? This doesn't concern you."
And Jaxson, annoyed, retorts,
"It doesn't, but I'm not going to let you talk to this child that way."
And Ron responds,
"I advise you to get the hell out of my face. This isn't the time we sparred as teenagers. I'll kick your ass."
Han then interjects, "It's not worth it. Please go home, Ron." And Ron exclaims,
"It's not worth it now. But it was worth you tossing me out of the academy when you knew I only stole that money to help my mother."
Jaxson, annoyed, exclaims back,
"Ron, don't bring her into this just because her surgery was expensive. It didn't mean you had to steal from the one man who nurtured us, who took us in, who trained us."
Ron then laughs and says,
"That man is nothing but a fraud."
Jaxson then steps in his face and says,
"It's only so much he could have done. He's only human. Why didn't you come to me? I could have helped you out."
Ron then argues,
"Because I can't stand you. I wouldn't take help from you if you were the last person on Earth. I struggled and had to fight for everything I got while you were rich, spoiled, and given everything on a silver platter."
And Jaxson retorts,
"The money that my dad has made has never defined me as a person. You should have come to me, but instead you always give me the cold shoulder."
Ron afterwards becomes more aggravated and yells,
"I can never win anything against you. I can't even win an argument. I'm sick of always being second best to you. My damn student couldn't even beat yours. I'm never going to shake your hand until I feel like I've surpassed you."
And Jaxson rebuttals,
"Ron, it's not about that."
And Ron responds by spitting in his face before he can finish his sentence. Jaxson then bolts towards Ron but is held back by Han. Wong says, "I bet that stung." And Han rebuttals, "Shouldn't you be trying to defuse this situation instead of instigating?" Wong then says, "You're soft, just like that student of yours. You wouldn't even let them solve their differences because you know it would be my student who would win this time." Unfazed by his words, Han replies, "This isn't the time or place for this. Take your students home, please." And Wong replies, "I'll let it be this time, but next time it won't be the same." Jaxson then shouts,
"Don't go anywhere, Sensei. Let me go."
Han then grabs Jackson's shoulder and says, "Jaxson, calm down." And Jaxson replies,
"He spat in my face, and now I'm going to break his."
Ron then laughs again and mutters,
"How weak,"
and departs on his motorcycle while Roger leaves with Sensei Wong in his car. Han then says, "I know, but is fighting him going to set a good example for David? I know he spat in your face, Jaxson, but if you beat him up in front of his student, it will only create another him. Don't let him drag you down with him. You're better than that." And Jaxson stops and thinks for a second. Minutes later, Jaxson replies,
"You know what? You're right."
And walks over to David and says,
"Buddy, I'm sorry you had to see that."
David retorts,
"I wanted to whoop that guy's,"
but stops when he sees the look on his mother's face. Afterward, David rebuttals,
"What I meant to say is, Sensei, fighting isn't always the way to solve things."
Lion, befuddled, announces,
"Man, all that drama has sure worked up my appetite. Let's go get a bite to eat."
And as Alexa's stomach rumbles, she replies,
"Yeah, I'm hungry."
Afterward, Maxwell commands,
"Yeah, everybody, let's go find a bite to eat."
Later that day, Jaxson walks to Maxwell in his office and says,
"Dad, Why do I feel sorrier for Ron, even when he spat in my face today?
Maxwell replies,
Yeah, he's difficult, but you do feel for him. You can't help but want to steer him in the right direction.
Jaxson then retorts,
Yeah, but I don't think I'm the person who's going to be able to do it.
And Maxwell replies,
Son, don't give up on people. Some just take more time to come around than others.
Jaxson, exhausted, says,
Well, Ron has had plenty. I've tried, Dad. I just think that's who he is at this point.
And walks out. Afterward, Grace then walks in and says,
I overheard.
And Maxwell rebuttals,
Well, sometimes Gracie's going to have to learn to figure things out himself. I don't always have all the answers.
Grace nods her head and then replies,
If only he had your patience. You didn't even let the guy who was hell-bent on putting you out of business get to you.
Maxwell, after contemplating about what she said, retorts,
Well, I've only lost my cool a few times in my life. I tend not to let people get to me. I try to keep more friends than enemies in my life.
Grace glances at him and candidly asks,
What about Zion?
Maxwell laughs and answers,
He might as well get ready to hate me, because I'm not going to let him take over this world, not even with his new ranger. He might as well get ready to hate me, because I'm not going to let him take over this world, not even with his new ranger.
After that, Colby, Alexa, Lion, and Becky burst through the door and Lion asks,
So, what are we going to do about this new ranger?
Following that, Colby says,
Yeah, we can't just let him go around causing havoc.
And Alexa interjects,
You're the geniuses. Don't just stare at us. You two need to come up with something.
Grace retorts,
Everybody calm down. Don't you think Maxwell has been through enough today? With all of Jackson's drama and now this new ranger?
Maxwell then says,
Guys, go get some rest. We'll talk about it in the morning.
The four then depart and Grace questions.
So what are you doing tonight?
Maxwell retorts,
I'm going to go rest my mind. I need to be ready and prepared for what's coming in the future.
Grace then leaves the room and Maxwell hears a knock at the door minutes later. Maxwell says,
Come in.
The door afterward slides open and a short, slender Guyanese man with dreads dressed in casual clothing walks in and says, I knew it had to be something serious for you to call me at this time of night, Maxwell. Maxwell says,
Yeah, Ezekiel, the swords are damaged pretty bad.
Ezekiel nods his head and rebuttals they can't be in any worse shape than Lightspeed Rescue Zords were back when I worked at the Aquabase. And Maxwell replies,
Well, let's get to work.